I mean, let's be real. Joe Biden's old. He's too old. He's gonna die any day soon. Instead of being in the White House, he should be in a retirement home.
Don't be bamboozled by these cable channels. It is war on Trump. It is war on the Republican Party. Don't be bamboozled by these cable channels. I did everything right and they indicted me.
What is up, motherfuckers? How are y'all doing? Well, it's finally here. We're finally talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict when we're like, what, almost 3 months into the war? Actually, not really. This whole war's been going on for 75 years.
Oh, yeah. That's because for 75 years you've been fucking everybody.
Yep. And it's even worse now than ever before. For those who are living under a rock and not keeping up with the news, let me give you a brief summary of what has happened in the last 2 to 3 months. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas, which is a terrorist organization that's currently leading Palestine, attacked Israel during a Jewish festival and killed 1,200 people and took 240 hostages. Now I'm going to say it right now. What I think Hamas did back on October 7th was a complete crime, a complete act of terrorism, an atrocity, and I will never defend what happened on that day. And fuck anybody that does. But oh boy, that doesn't even compare to what happened after that. In the last 2 months since the October 7th attack, Israel went on a full-scale invasion in Gaza, killing so many innocent women and children. On a scale way worse than anything Hamas did back on October 7th. In late November, there was a temporary ceasefire where Hamas would return 100 hostages to Israel. In return, they would have to stop attacking for a few days and give humanitarian aid to help the Gazan civilians. Once those few days have passed, Israel and Palestine went back to fighting. However, this past weekend, the Israeli Defense Force, or IDF for short, accidentally killed 3 Israeli hostages who were trying to escape from Hamas because supposedly they thought it was a trap. As terrible as all this pain and suffering is, what does this have to do with the U.S.? Well, the U.S. is one of 10 nations, including Israel, that voted against the ceasefire. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the UN want to stop this stupid-ass war. Not only that, but we have some of the most dumbest, most retarded texts I've seen regarding the whole war. Originally, this video was meant to be a compilation of some of the most idiotic takes I've seen regarding the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But since this war is so complex, and there's a lot of updates for me to keep up with, I decided to react to just one. And who better to react to than Israel's #1 apologist on the internet? I'm of course talking about Ben Shapiro. Let's take a listen to what this little goblin have to say.
That's how they get there. It doesn't matter that those people from Hamas would throw the gay leftists off the roofs. That doesn't matter.
Will you look at that? Ben Shapiro has finally grown a beard. Everybody give him a round of applause. Amazing. Ben Shapiro has finally reached puberty at the age of 40.
Queers for Palestine only exists as a group because of this ideology that you're either a member of the oppressor class or a member of the oppressed class. And that's all that matters in life.
Yeah, I've heard that argument before, that you can't support Palestinian rights because they're anti-LGBTQ. The truth is, I don't care what beliefs as a certain group of people have, and injustice is still an injustice. If you think Palestinians not supporting LGBTQ rights is justification for Israel to colonize them, then by that logic, it was okay for Europeans to steal land from Native Americans because they did human sacrifice. This whole narrative that, oh, this group of people did that, so therefore they deserve to be colonized, that's what colonizers use as justification to commit genocide towards certain groups of people. Instead of bringing justice and democracy as they supposedly claim, instead what they're doing is being tyrannical imperialists. And that's how we get results like the US putting in their own puppet dictators. Now people might wonder, why would LGBTQ people in their right mind support Palestinians? The same I would ask, why would any black people during the time of the American Revolution support the American colonists when the British promised them their freedom? Probably because black people at the time saw that the American colonists were being oppressed by a British monarchy, and them being slaves have the same sense of oppression. Well, that's probably how queer people feel about Palestinians. That's also how you end up justifying the myriad evils of Hamas, because it doesn't matter what they do. They're always oppressed enough that they can do whatever they want. Your level of oppression now justifies literally anything and everything. Now, to be fair, yes, there are leftists out there who defend Hamas, and they even go so far to defend what happened on October 7th. And I see some leftists go so far to say that Hamas are freedom fighters, which I think these people are idiots who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because genocide is not okay. Just because Palestinians are being oppressed by the Israeli government, that doesn't justify Palestinians killing Israeli women and children. Genocide is never okay. It's not okay when Israelis do it. It's not okay when Palestinians do it. Genocide is wrong, period.
Hamas built a terror tunnel that is so large you can drive trucks through it. It was built down to 50 meters underground, like 150 feet underground, to avoid bombing on top of it. This is actually tape of Yahya Sinwar's brother, Mohammed Sinwar, driving through the terror tunnel in a truck. Hey, look at the size of this tunnel. This tunnel looks like a tunnel in California underneath. It looks like they used boring equipment to actually bore holes into the earth in order so that they could this thing is kilometers long, 4 kilometers long. This is where they spent all their money.
Jesus fuck, Ben, you sound like a fucking child. I mean, to be fair, I do too, but it's okay for me to sound like a child because I'm young. I'm in my early 20s. Versus you, who's almost 40, you should have dropped the balls by now.
But don't worry, Hamas is a peace partner. Hamas, by the way, would win an election in the West Bank right now if an election were held in the West Bank right now.
Okay, and what's your point, Ben? Like, I've seen this argument before that, Palestinians get what they deserve because they voted for Hamas. Well...
Guess what, motherfucker?
Children can't vote, so you can't use this as an excuse to invade Gaza, because innocent children are being hurt by this war. Hell, didn't we criticize Hamas because they kill women and children?
So Israel is ready to clear more aid to go into the Gaza Strip. What actually is happening to that aid? Well, here you can see pretty clearly what's happening to that aid. The UAE sent in aid. It literally says on the side of this giant truck, UAE aid for those affected in Gaza. Who's riding on top of the truck? Why, look at that. It's members of Hamas with their faces cloaked, and they are holding weapons. Almost as though what Israel claimed, which is that every bit of humanitarian aid would be stolen by Hamas, was true.
So I looked into this, and unfortunately it's true. Yes, Hamas is stealing humanitarian aid from Gazan civilians, which is terrible and it should not be defended. So Ben Shapiro is right when he calls out Hamas for their evils. But, oh boy, he does not hold Israel to the exact same standard. And right now you're going to see how much Ben Shapiro sucks Israel's cock no matter what when he talks about the IDF killing the Israeli hostages.
So Israeli soldiers didn't know what to do, and they ended up shooting 3 hostages who were attempting to signal them for their help. Israel's investigating. Israel is going to end up, I would assume, doing something about the officers who were involved in this shooting. It's a horrible, tragic situation, and it is entirely the fault of Hamas because those people wouldn't be in Gaza in the first place if they had not been taken into Gaza.
Well, according to Israeli civilians, the invasion in Gaza hurts the hostages more than it helps them. And about the hostages being in Gaza, well, these hostages wouldn't be in Gaza in the first place if Netanyahu didn't create Hamas. And not only that, but Israel knew the October 7th attack was going to take place, and they did nothing about it. So yes, Israel is at fault that the 3 hostages were killed.
And meanwhile, members of the left wing are like, well, that's obvious that Israel is committing human rights violations.
Well, the Israeli commander at the scene told the officers not to shoot the 3rd hostages after they already killed the first 2. But one soldier disobeyed and shot the 3rd hostage anyway. And considering that the 3 hostages were not armed, and they did everything possible to let the IDF know that it was not a trap, shooting the 3 hostages is a war crime. Because you don't shoot unarmed people.
You literally have 18, 19, 20-year-old guys who are going into Gaza and getting killed by the dozens in order to preserve the life of civilians in these areas.
Israel going to Gaza to preserve the life of civilians. Yeah, by blowing them to bits. When Hamas kills Israeli civilians, Ben Shapiro is like, oh yeah, it's a clear sign of terrorism. But when it's the IDF killing Palestinian civilians, he's like, oh, they're just trying to preserve the innocent civilians living in Gaza. Legit, Ben Shapiro makes fun of Hamas apologists when they give Hamas a pass when they commit genocide. Yet he does the exact same thing when it comes to the Israeli government. I'll make a deal with you, Ben. If I can call out Hamas for their evils, then you should call out the Israeli government when they commit war crimes. Sounds good, Tiny?
And meanwhile, the West continues to maintain that the real onus is on Israel.
Yes, and I explained why that's the case in regards to the attack that took place 3 months ago. And as I've said in the beginning of this video, this conflict didn't start on October 7th. Instead, it started 75 years ago when Israel was created and forced Palestinians out of their homes. And I've seen people such as Eli David who are like, how come no one made any comments like that when 9/11 took place? Well, that's the fucking problem. This whole conflict with Israel is just another stupid war that the military-industrial complex is using for their own advantage. No different than any other war that we've been through in the last 6 decades. I mean, think about it. The U.S. lied about Vietnam. The U.S. lied about Afghanistan. The U.S. lied about Iraq. The U.S. lied about Ukraine. Yet all of a sudden they're telling the truth when it comes to Israel? Go fuck yourself.
Okay, meanwhile, according to the New York Times, the United States is now pushing Israel to, quote unquote, scale back the war Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who has been one of the worst officials in the administration on this.
Well, will you look at that? Once again, me and Tiny agree on something. Yes, Lloyd Austin is terrible when it comes to the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And this clip right here is proof of that.
And as I've said, protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza is both a moral duty and a strategic imperative. So we will continue to stand up for Israel's bedrock right to defend itself. And we will also continue to urge the protection of civilians during conflict and to increase the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Alright, so let me get this straight. On one hand, you say we need to protect Gazan civilians. And on the other hand, you say we need to send Israel weapons. And Israel's going to use these weapons to kill Gazan civilians? How does that make sense? Like, this is a whole contradiction I see from the Biden administration.
Was traveling on Sunday in the Middle East for a visit to Israel and 3 Persian Gulf nations as Biden administration officials push Israel to end its large-scale ground and air campaign in the Gaza Strip within weeks and transition to a more focused phase in its war against Hamas. Well, all offers open. I'm sure Israel's like, okay, you want to lay out your plans? Really, like, if you have some magical plans by which Israel can make the Gaza Strip safe and quiescent, I'm sure Israel is willing to hear it, considering they currently have tens of thousands of troops deployed in the Gaza Strip right now doing heavy hand-to-hand urban combat.
Well, if you listen to Israeli politicians and journalists, this is what they have to say.
Why is it necessary, it is reported, to start shooting, having snipers outside a church?
I saw the reports this morning. The church, there are no churches in Gaza, so I'm not quite sure where the report is talking about.
There's a Catholic church in there, isn't there? That is.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no Christians because they were driven out by.
Well, respectfully, there are Christians because I spoke to an MP yesterday who has family members in the church who are Christians.
Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know who was attacked. I didn't see the report.
I don't care about Gaza. I literally don't care. For all I care, they can go out and swim in the sea. I want to see dead bodies of terrorists around Gaza. That's what I want to see. I care about only 3 things. The first thing is I care about our soldiers, our dear, precious soldiers that danger their life every day and every night for the state of Israel. I care about the one thing that will have to be, and this is killing and destroying Hamas from the face of the earth.
כמו שעבד בצפון, הוא צריך לעבוד בדרום, ולהשאיר את עזה ללא ערבים, ולהקים התיישבות יהודית בכל חבל עזה. כאשר אומרים ביישובי העוטף שרוצים לראות את הים, זאת אומרת, כדי לראות את הים צריך שלא יהיו בתים. לא יהיו בתים, לא יהיו ערבים, רק זו דרך אלגנטית, רומנטית כזאת, לומר, אני רוצה לראות את הים. איך תראה את הים? לא יהיו בתים, לא יהיו ערבים, תראה את הים.
אז וחלילה, פשע מלחמה זה אני, אתה רגל על הגב. פשע מלחמה זה אני מודה, אני אגיד את זה פה, לא אכפת לי שירדו עליי, אוספים פה חומרים. אני לא נרדם טוב בלי שאני רואה בתים קורסים בעזה. מה אני אעשה? עוד בתים, עוד מגדלים, שלא יהיה להם לאן לחזור. אגב, בתקופת התנ"ך גם היו זורים את האדמה במלח. הם צריכים לזכור עם עמלק. הם צריכים לזכור את זה להרבה מאוד זמן. אי אפשר להגיע לאיזה הסדר מיד. סליחה, זה רק אני. זה פשע מלחמה.
Does that sound like a group of people who want peace? Of course not. But of course, you'll never hear that from Ben Shapiro, because according to Ben Shapiro, Israel is all perfect angels who can do no wrong. But why does he think that? Because he's not America first. He's Israel first.
Now, realistically speaking, the fact is that Israel is going to have to continue the heavy ground operation for at least another couple of weeks. Presumably, the United States is not going to continue to push for the idea that Israel should preemptively end its military actions against Hamas.
Well, if you ask human rights groups, they'll tell you that destroying the Hamas tunnels is a bad idea, mainly because it'll put Gazan civilians at risk. And not only that, but that'll put the Israeli hostages at risk, considering that Hamas is not telling anybody where they're hiding them. And as you mentioned earlier, Hamas is stealing humanitarian aid from Gazan civilians. And I looked into this. Come to find out that Hamas is hiding the humanitarian aid inside the tunnels, which is more reason not to destroy them. And about the idea of destroying Hamas, I would like to see the people who committed the atrocities of October 7th be brought to justice. But come on, doing full-scale invasion or committing mass genocide is not going to end Hamas. Instead, you only make people sympathize with them. Why don't you take a look at the war in Vietnam? How did that turn out?
But I have to say, there's nothing more tiresome, and this is true, whether we're talking about American troops in harm's way in Fallujah or whether you're talking about Israeli troops in harm's way in Gaza. There's nothing more tiresome than listening to politicians jabber about civilian casualties while armies are doing their best to protect both their own soldiers and civilians who are being used as human shields.
Well, look how the little goblin uses his feelings over facts. I mean, you can totally hear it in his voice.
Oh, I'm getting sick and tired of everybody saying that Israel's old man.
Well, I'm sorry, Ben, but Israel is not doing its best to protect civilians from being used as human shields, and I've just shown evidence that they don't. Well, that's all I gotta say for that video. What I've just shown you was only part of the video. The original video is over 50 minutes long, so if you want to see the whole thing in context, the link is in the description. Thank you to everyone who's made it to the end of the video, and I want to apologize for taking so long to make this video. Since this conflict is so complicated, there's a lot of research for me to do, and a lot of updates to keep up with. There's probably a lot more shit going on right now in regards to the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict as I'm recording and editing this video. If you guys want to see more videos regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, let me know in the comments section. But this is all I want to say now at the moment. So let me know what you guys think about this conflict overall. And who do you think is right? Is Ben Shapiro right? Or am I right? I would like to know why. If you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe to my channel. And press the bell notification so you don't miss out on the next video. You never know when I upload. And if you could, please follow me on social media. My Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter, not X, are all in the description. So check me out there. And I want to thank those of you who have been with me throughout 2023. It's been a wild journey. So far, I only have 41 subscribers, which, according to YouTube standards, that ain't shit. It would be nice if I were to have 100k subscribers. If we could make that happen by the end of 2024, I'd really appreciate it. And I hope your 2024 turns out better than your 2023. See you in the next one.
The charge is falsifying business records.
I will get Trump.
It's felony criminal conduct.
I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him.
The charge is falsifying business records.
They came up with a new one.